Hello my darlings, it's Gem Hawks here at Jessie James Beads. How are you doing today? What has your day involved? It's been sun, rain, sun today. Oh no, I take that back, it's raining again. What can I say? Autumn is definitely kind of creeping in there at the moment over here in the UK. How are you guys? Have you had a beautiful day? I really hope you have. Found some joy in today's activities, or people that you've spoken to, or something that you like to do. Have you crafted today? Have you played a game? Did you manage to get out in the air? What have you been up to? Give me a little wave. Say hello, Gem, if you can see and hear me okay. Cherie is in. Hello, lovely Gem. Cool and breezy day in Oregon. Yeah, it's definitely windy here too. I mean, we don't tend to get tornadoes as such, but sometimes bits of the trees come off. You know, little bit of a mild inconvenience. In the grand scheme of things, it's nothing much. How are you? Have you had a lovely day? Debbie is in. Hi Debbie, how are you? Have you had a good day today? How's the weather where you are in the world? Denise is in. Hi Gem, says Denise. Hello my loves. Can you see and hear me okay today? It's always a little bit of a, oh, will they be able to make sure that you can actually hear me all right? Lisa's in. Hello to you, my darling. Lovely to have your company. For today's free tutorial here on Jessie James Beads, we are going to be working with a magical mystery bead box, and the one that I have got for you today is August 2023. Now if you have yet to open or receive yours, close your eyes for 2 minutes, because I'm just going to run through some of the beauties that you get inside the box. If you have already received it, I hope that you won't mind joining me for just a couple of moments to celebrate the beauties that we received in this box. Tale Follies is the name of the MMBB for August. Hello from Iowa, says Laurie. Watching from Portland. Gresham in Oregon also, says Debbie. Cherie says that's just seasonal pruning for free. Yeah, I like your thinking. I was chatting with a customer today about how I consider myself thrifty. Some people might call it cheap, but I like to think of it as thrifty. Watching the pennies. You know how it is. Denise says that she can hear and see me. Thank you, my darling. So yeah, Cherie, I'm with you. Free pruning is a win, as long as it's not like anywhere super dodgy. Let's just enjoy the weather while it's still daylight, because we are almost at that point. I guess actually it's Maybon already, so the wheel has turned and we're kind of at an equinox really. So things are pretty equal, and then it's going to get a little bit cooler, but oh my gosh, we have got so much to look forward to over the next couple of months. I've had a little bit of a sneaky peek at some of the plans coming up. If you are considering winter workshop, wow, I'm so excited. Anne is in from sunny California, where it's 26 degrees centigrade or 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That's balmy. That's a perfect day for me. I'd still go swimming in that weather. Sounds amazing. Shall we pop down to the board for just 2 shakes, and we can have a look and see what we're going to be working with, what you get in the MMBB for August. I do love saying that. It amuses me endlessly. Tale Follies. Now, there's Talking Animal Friends, which is a beautiful bead mix. You get these really cute little spiky dudes. It's not an echidna, it's definitely a hedgehog. There's flowers, there's metallics, there's art. I love these so much. Rose cage beads are gorgeous. I'm not going to spend too long, because I think that perhaps many of you will have already seen what we have got this month. This is absolutely fantastic. I love a verdigris, I love a brass, I love a bronze, I love a copper. All that looking very, very autumnal. Tutau is in from Houston. Hello Tutau, how are you today? I hope that all is well in your world. Cherie says this looks so cute. I love this box. I do love a little bit of fairy tale, a little bit of imagination, a little bit of crown wearing, that kind. True Love's First Kiss. How beautiful is that? Like I said, I'm not going to spend hours and hours and hours. Fairy Godmother's Flight Delay. Oh my gosh, the sparkle in this one. You have got some really, really beautiful, almost like little bubbles of magic in that mix. Princesses with Problems. Well, that describes me perfectly. I'm hopefully going to hang out with some girlfriends tomorrow evening, and that's what we are going to be identifying as princesses with problems. Gorgeous, gorgeous beads. These almost feel like a lamp work. I'm not saying that is what they are, but they're absolutely gorgeous. Lots of beads, some more fairy wings. I love this. This is the sort of thing that I like to do when I have a large bead. Just overlay wire over the surface. And if you don't fancy doing that, there's one already made for you. That is definitely a winner. Let's pop that out of the way. Also, can I tell you, I never knew that I needed an origami bear. But oh my gosh, I need an origami bear. How cute is that from the Prince Charming mix? You also originally had 3 types of chain. I swiped one of them for a project. This almost Grecian style. I've made one of those into a headdress from a preceding mix. And then you've got this larger chain, which is multiple sizes. There was a 3rd chain, but I used it. My feather has one hole that's not open. It's got metal inside. Does anyone have an idea of how to fix it or what to do? Let me just grab my round nose pliers and grab my feather. Sometimes you will find that there's just a teeny tiny bit of a plating over the punch like so. So if you're very, very gentle, what you can do is take your round nose pliers and just try and poke that through, because very often it's a very slender sliver of metal. Just mind your fingers, do be gentle to yourself. And just give that a bit of a go. If that doesn't work, you could perhaps use something a little bit firmer, maybe even a hole punch. If it doesn't work for you, get in touch with customer service, let them know that there is an unresolvable issue, and please can they send you a new one. And I feel certain that somebody will come back to you with a resolution, because they're gorgeous. You deserve to be able to use that. Fairy Tale Follies, the Magical Mystery Bead Box for August 2023. Do you want to see our projects? Love to see your headdress, says Anne. I tell you what then. 2 shakes. It's just here. I've got a pile of headdresses because why wouldn't I? If you make fairy elven headdresses, quite often it's quite nice just to pop one on. So it's not this one, but also... and it's not this one, but also... it's this one. So all I've done, and you did ask about this previously, is I have literally taken 26 gauge wire and woven between each of the pieces, between each of the mobile links, popped it on a wire and just woven that around the front half, and then done a wrapped loop on either side at the back end there. A little bit like a Grecian headdress. I can never get it to sit straight though. I look in the mirror and I think, oh dear. That's a bit on the wonk, isn't it? Let's just pop those back on the pile of things that I just enjoy making. If you ever need a headdress, I'm your lass. I have many. Could be a flapper piece too. Oh my gosh, yes. I love 1920s. The whole design aesthetic of the Art Deco period and the Art Nouveau period as well. The designs, the clothing, the cars, the architecture, interior design, everything. Tulips everywhere. Those are beautiful, says Denise. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. Debbie says thank you for the advice. Hopefully it will help. If not, get in touch with customer service. Cherie says so cool. Debbie says how cool, this is awesome. So pretty, says Denise. You're very kind to people. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure and honour to be with you. Let's head back down to the board and unveil our projects. Now, in my funny little mind, and it is a funny little mind, I kind of imagined, I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of my YouTube tutorials, but I make little woven swords. I'm not going to show them on screen now because they're not Jessie James Beads products. However, I like to make little woven swords, and in my tiny little mind, these kind of reminded me of a slightly more feminine, but a little bit swordy, maybe. Not really, but, you know. I've been watching The Witcher on Netflix because, you know, Henry Cavill. I agree. Love the 20s era, says Debbie. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. If I could time travel, I would probably go there. Wouldn't really fit in on the wrong shape. Except no bras in the 20s. Some of us would be in trouble. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Cherie. There's, yes, I'm not even going to go on any further about that subject. So these are the 2 earrings that I'm going to show you how to make today. Now they are a variation on a theme, and you'll see that you get a slightly different look in one direction than you get in the other direction, because you have almost an enclosed side to these beautiful, it's a bead cap at the end of the day, so I've used it to cap some beads. Hey, if I'm time travelling, I'm taking my wardrobe with me. And on the rear side of the design, you have this almost fleur-de-lis like swoops, which close up around the back of the crystal. So you can face that whichever way you fancy. I quite like it with the closed section forwards. Now these are basically variations on a theme, but I wanted to show you both of them. The wire in question is 18 gauge round wire. I've created some sample pieces here in a gold colour. I'm going to work with the copper colour today, just because it's a little bit easier to see on the board. So each of these is around 6 inches in length, and that's very definitely more than I actually need. As ever, I'm going to just warm that wire through nicely. Now these are super easy projects, super easy, I promise you. If you've never picked up pliers and wire before, this is for you. So first thing I'm going to do is warm the wire through, then I'm going to check to make sure that it is trimmed flush at the end. So mind your fingertips. I put my fingertip behind and away from the cutting surfaces, and in that way I can control and stop that wire cut off from pinging into infinity forever or at the dog. And what we're going to do is turn a section back. We're going to make this little baby first. So I'm going to turn over a section, a very, very tiny amount, and just roll that over the back. So you can see that at the moment that's got a little bit of a hook shape, and I want that to sit down really neatly so it becomes super flat. So I'm going to employ a second pair of pliers. I'm going to use another pair of chain nose pliers, and I'm going to support the design sideways like so, as close as you can get to the end, and then I'm just going to pinch this end section up neatly. And when I first started working with wire and I wanted to do this, I would spend hours, and all that would happen is the wire would twist over and I would never get that nice neat finish. So a second pair of pliers, moving your second set, your non-dominant set, as close as you can to that little U shape on the end, and then pinching that firmly means that you get a really neat section of wire turned back over. And if you flip that around through 90 degrees, you'll see it almost disappears. So I have got a selection of beads that I've chosen to work with from the MMBB for August. Now you could obviously switch around which beads you want to use on which design, but I really like these little feisty red rondelles. They're quite sparkly for an opaque bead, quite sparkly indeed. Now making sure that your wire is good and warm and straight will always help when you're working with smaller beads. What I would say is never force a glass bead onto the wire. You can see there that this moves really easily. If you grab a bead, a different bead, and it feels a little bit snug on the end, don't force it, because you may end up losing the bead and you might end up with a little bit of bead in your finger, and we don't want that. So I've slid that all the way down. The next thing I'm going to do is to choose one of the bead caps. Now I almost feel guilty calling this a bead cap, but that is indeed what it is. It reminds me of nail coverings from a film I watched when I was a small child. I think it might have been The King and I with Yelbrunner, but it's a very long time ago. Let's slide that all the way along so you can see that this little tip on the end is a little bit like a dragon's fingernail, is going to sit over the top of that beautiful feisty red bead, and we want it to. We want there to be just a hint of red peeking down at the base there. The bead acts as a stopper above that little bit of turned back wire. It's a really useful technique to get hold of, because sometimes you don't have a head pin, sometimes you don't want a great big spiral to create a faux head pin, and sometimes your head pins just simply aren't long enough, so you can make your own after an effect just by turning the wire over, giving that a bit of a smooth and adding a bead that sits safely. So I'm just going to pinch that gently whilst I grab my next bead, which is this gorgeous enhanced heart shape. So it's a lovely sort of pinky colour. Reminds me of a unicorn's horn as well, Debbie. They are magical looking. You can see how that sits down really neatly, and because you might be able to see it just on the rear side where that fleur-de-lis, the fleur-de-lis is open, so if you need to, you can just open these out very, very gently. If you wanted to use these with a slightly larger bead, you can. They are quite malleable, just be gentle with them. So we're just going to pop the point of the heart down inside, making sure that the crossed over section of wire sits at the back. Let's flip the design over a moment. So I've hidden that mechanical, I suppose, fold with that little red bead and the fingernail effect, and then we're going to hold everything in position with the heart bead up at the top. Now this is, I want to say, an acetate or something similar. It's a lovely bead to work with. It's very, very light, so I would wear these as earrings without any hesitation. What we're going to do is to turn the wire forwards just above where it exits that heart-shaped bead. We want it to be really close, but we don't want any stress on the bead, so just pulling that forwards. If I turn it all sideways, I'll continue that bend by hand rather than using a tool. And what we're looking for here is to have everything not so tight that it feels like it's going to break away, but tight enough that the heart isn't going to spin very much. So what we're going to do next is to create a lovely round form up at the top, which we can then add into our earring finding. Now you can use a slender pencil, you can use your round nose pliers, or you can grab your multi-step bail makers. I love mine, I use them all the time. So if you do have the 6-step multi bail makers, you can go for number 3 or number 4. I'm looking for quite a large loop. I'm just going to flip that all the way around, just pushing, let me just bring that into the middle, just pushing the wire around so that it crosses back over that start point where we change the angle at the top of the heart. And I want that to sit really quite firmly and neatly, but not like everything's going to explode. So what we're going to do now is just trim away the excess, and you can see we started with 6 inches of wire and we've got a good sort of 2.5 inches still available to us. And I need to just get right down in there and trim away the excess of the wire. That's plenty enough to be making something useful with, so that will go in my scrap pot for later use. What we can do next is just move the shape that we've created, that round form, move that gently until it sits exactly where we want it to. So if I just tilt that in the light, you can see that the cut end is going back to the beginning point where we changed that angle. Once I'm happy that it's sitting firmly enough, but not too firmly, I'm going to grip that and give the round form a squish. Now this is a simple loop, or an open and closable loop if you prefer. So you have an option to pop a wrapped loop up at the top here. However, because you're working in the cleft of that heart, it's a little bit easier, especially if you're newer to wire work, just to work with that simple loop. So that was our first earring. So now I have a pair of mismatched colour earrings, which I love. I absolutely love playing with the idea of asymmetry. Asymmetry doesn't just have to be things are different, it can be the same design but upside down. It can be the same design but in a different colour or a different gemstone. So I think it's really good fun to play around with those ideas. So that's the first one of our little brace of fairy princess earrings. I do have a couple of ear wires there, but I'm fairly sure you can open your ear wires. One thing I will say to you, let me just grab this one back a second. You can see that my loop runs, this is the preferred view. That's what I want to be sitting forwards. And if I show you the earring findings that I have the option, because those two loops are in the same orientation, I could add those together by using a jump ring. However, something that I find myself doing time and time again is one turn of the loop on my earring finding. Now if you've got lovely earring findings, just put a little bit of warmth into that loop at the bottom and then twist it through 90 degrees. You can do that once. If you start messing around a lot more than that, what can happen is the wire will weaken at that bend and you'll simply snap them. If you're working with sterling silver, that's really annoying and sad. So what I'm going to do is just put a tiny kick on the end of my earrings there because it looks nicer on display. And then I'm going to open up that earring finding like so and pop my earring in, my princess earring. Let's just close that back up, give it a squish to make sure it's firmly into position. And there I've got my asymmetric by colour little earrings that we've done the first one. So shall we do the second one together? I have a second length, again it's around about 6 inches or so. We're going to start by warming that wire through. So this is super easy, super beginner friendly. They could be unicorn horn earrings, but that would, I don't know how I would feel about that. I'd like to see unicorn horns on unicorns. I do love a little bit of a mythological creature. So we've warmed that all the way through. This end is already flush cut, so that's where we're going to start. And we're going to begin by grabbing those round nose pliers, which have disappeared off my desk into infinity over here. I'd hidden them with all the MMBB stuff. So we're going to start quite close to the end of those pliers and start rotating the wire around until we get most of the way around a round form. So you've got a little bit of a hooky loop there. We're then going to switch to using our chain nose pliers. Now I haven't done actually quite enough of a loop, so I'm just going to manhandle that into position. Close that up. So you've got that round form. I'm going to give that a gentle squish to sit it straight and flat, and then I'm going to rotate in small manoeuvres. So I'm only moving about 1/8 of a circle at a time until I get 2 rotations. So you can see we've gone once around, twice around. Once we've gone that second time, I'm going to flip the design over, hold on to the double coil and pull the wire away at a right angle, like so. And again, when you're adding beads onto wire, if you make sure that that wire is lovely and smooth and warm, you will get much better results each time. So I'm going to use one of these. Now I like to think of these as a lucky 4-leaf clover. I will address that in a second. I'll grab hold of my earring finding in a second, Debbie, and I'll show you how you can sort that out. So I've got my lucky clover. That's going to slide all the way down. Now if I'm making these as a pair of earrings, rather than having one coil moving clockwise and the other one moving clockwise, I'll always try to have them opposing. So I've got an anti-clockwise and a clockwise coil together. So again, I'm going to pinch the bead down at the bottom of the design and add in that beautiful bead cap all the way down over the surface again. And because you've got that almost dragon's nail type design, it will hold that bead and stop it from spinning too much. So we want just a little bit of pressure there. And then we can add in our heart-shaped bead. So let's draw that one down. Push it into position. So once you start adding a little bit of pressure from above, everything starts to become solid. So I'm just going to check to make sure I've got my spirals in opposition to one another, which is always useful to do before you start making the bends in the wire. So we're now working with a crystal rather than a resin or an acetate. So you need to be cautious when you make this bend. We want it very close to the top where it comes out of the bead, but not so close that it causes damage. What I tend to do, I play guitar, I clean guitars, I work with my hands all the time, so I'm not fussy over my nails. So what I tend to do is pop my nail underneath and draw the wire over the top of my nail, and in that way I'm offering protection to the bead. You could do that with a piece of perhaps a little bit of paper or something like that, a bit of card maybe, just to show that you're offering protection to that bead and making sure that it's not kind of at risk. So again, we're going to grab those multi-step bell makers. You could again use a pencil or something similar. I can't remember if I used number 3 or number 4 now, so we're just going to go with number 3 and hope for the best. Rotate that wire around, draw the wire all the way across, and you'll see that I'm just allowing the bead to spin so that I can get that to sit right. Now at the moment that's in the wrong orientation, so we're going to twist that in just a second, but whilst it's in the wrong orientation, whilst it's flat across the back, it makes it a little bit easier to trim away, making sure that you leave a flush cut Slightly less spare wire this time, but it's going in the scrap pot nonetheless. Just going to make sure that those 2 loops sit neatly. Tammy says, I just love watching you make stuff. Thank you, Tammy. That's really kind of you. Is the bead cap from the MMBB? It most certainly is. What a glorious one it is. Great advice, says Debbie. Thank you. Sissy says, hello, lovely. We'll watch on replay. And Debbie also says, Anne, yes, it is. Aren't they gorgeous? So I'm just going to make sure that the cut end meets the angle change where it came out the top of the bead, and then I need to just take a moment to make sure that everything is in the correct orientation. So my coil has spun around, so I'm going to get that spun back into position, making sure that the coil sits and I've got the correct face of my bead cap. You can give that a very gentle squish as well if you want to. And then I'm just going to make sure that the circular form sits neatly in the cleft of that crystal heart. That's all there is to it. So I'm going to accidentally destroy my earring finding. One of the first things that you can do to make your earring findings work harder for you is be gentle with them. And again, if you have a thumbnail that you can use, even if it's quite a teeny one, what you can do is just protect those beads from moving before you even open the loop. So let's open this up. When you're opening the loop on an earring finding, what we're going to do is open it like a jump ring, so you're only ever opening half of the design. And the problem that was expressed is that the spring goes down and that the bead also goes down. Well, this is a gentle moment of pushing it back up. Do you know what I needed to do was to twist this before I opened it. So I'm just going to turn that very carefully. No, probably shouldn't do that, but there we go. That means that I've got the jump ring in effect at the bottom of my earring finding is now sideways, which means it can fit on my design. So let's pop it on, and let's say that everything goes south and it all comes down. You can very simply, very usually, that's a queer turn of phrase, isn't it? You can most usually just push the bead back up and support the bead with your non-dominant hand. Let's just pull this apart. So I'm pulling the bead and the spring up and away from that open and closable loop, and then I'm going to close that loop back up. Now I slightly mangled it by turning it after I'd opened it, but it still works, which is good for me. If you do find that there's a bit of a gap, you can usually give that a teeny tiny squish. Once it's set back in position, give it a squish across the loop. Now we're not pressing anywhere where there's a bead, where there's other wire involved. We're just going across the loop. So if you imagine that my finger is the jump ring, we're going across the central part. We're not messing around over here or out here either. Deborah's in from Seneca, Pennsylvania. If I've pronounced that wrong, I'm very, very sorry. I can't keep things in my head for too long. I have a bit of a squishy brain in that way. So when I'm making jewellery to sell, if your earrings don't look exactly the same, your earring findings rather, I find that taking just a couple of moments to put a teeny tiny kick on the end, making sure that your angles line up. One would usually do this before one attaches it to the jewellery. Just gives you that extra element. I think I've put this on backwards, you know. I have. Wow. So I'm just going to open that one up. Flip that back out, pop it back in. Now can you see I'm gripping with my non-dominant hand, and that spring and ball are not moving. So prevention is far better than the cure when it comes to jewellery findings. Give that a squish. Let's see, does that look better? That looks better. So taking those few extra seconds just to get your coils in opposition to one another, for instance, making sure that there's enough tension that stuff doesn't move around too much, doesn't matter if it moves a little bit. You can also just give it a little bit of a squish, get those earring findings looking the same, and you've got a pair of matched earrings. So of course with these ones, with the loop down at the bottom or the double coil, you can absolutely flip one so that it's up the other way. So what I'm going to do is I might destroy this earring finding. They have a couple of uses in them, but not forever. Do I have enough space in here to pop this in at the top? I may not. Let's just open that up slightly more. I might snap the earring finding. If I do, oh well. pop that in through the loop, close the loop back up. I've got new glasses this week and I can no longer see anything. They're for distance. I can drive my car really safely, but I can't see much of anything else I'm supposed to be doing. So you could pop this up the other way if you wanted to. Just make sure that everything sits where you want it to. And again, you've got a different mismatch then. You've got loops onto which you can add other parts from your beautiful collection. I really enjoyed that strand. I think that's a lovely collection. I adore these spacers as well. For me, I love a bit of sparkle, but I like my spacers to be quite plain. And these are just like gorgeous chubby donuts of metallic lushness. Denise says, thank you for your expertise. Well, I try. I wouldn't go as far as saying it's expertise, darling, but thank you very much anyway. You've got lots of ways that you can enhance these designs. There's so much to work with. These are outstanding. And again, I was tempted to pop one of those in with these gorgeous bead caps. For the Magical Mystery Bead Box of August, there are a handful left. And they are linked in the video description. So if you missed out on this month and you've seen lots of things that you desperately love, like, that chain is so gorgeous. If, like me, you're into, weirdly, this origami bear. Who knew? Who knew I needed an origami bear? I didn't. I got those glasses and I still can't get used to them. Do you know what? Let me just pop you back up to my face. Hello, I'm still here. Thanks for hanging out with me today. The issue is, okay, I've had the same glasses for about 5 years because, as aforementioned, thrifty. If I can get away with it, I will. And they've been absolutely great for driving, but I can't really see the telly. So the telly's about 15 feet away from me. Obviously, when I'm driving, I need to be seeing at the front of the car and all the way into the distance. And everything's squishy, and it's not great. And I'm thinking I need different glasses. I can't cope. So I hope that you have enjoyed Fairy Tale Follies. Did you know also that the Magical Mystery Bead Box has a whole bunch of different subscription levels? So I've also popped a link in the video description so that you can have a look out and see if any of those are going to be suitable for you. So the thing I love most about the Magical Mystery Bead Box is that you get not just goodies. Who doesn't love goodies? Who doesn't love sparkle? Who doesn't love a golden origami bear? I mean, mind blown. There's so much in these boxes that you don't necessarily think that you would work with, but you get a whole bunch of inspiration, and it's like having a little challenge all to yourself every month. So have a look at those options, see what you think. I love the brown and green together, says Cherie. I know, right? The bear is awesome. It is! If you had said to me 1 month ago, hey Gem, what's the thing that would really surprise you in the Magical Mystery Bead Box that you didn't even know existed? I wouldn't have a clue where to start. I don't know, an alien head with diamonds on it. I don't know. But I now know that that thing is an origami bear. So excited by this. I have to wear the glasses low on my nose to watch TV. Yes. But these ones, when I look sideways, everything goes into squishy vision. You know, when there's a flashback, it's like going back to Wayne's World. It's the 80s or the 90s again and we're watching silly telly. And everything goes into... That's what my life is like at the moment. It's crazy, which is why I never wear them when I'm on here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with the Magical Mystery Bead Box for August. Fairy Tale Follies. And it's been my pleasure to hang out with you guys. I hope that you've enjoyed the tutorials. I hope that you've enjoyed having a look through the gorgeous goodies that we've got in this month's box. And I look forward to coming back with you very, very soon. My schedule, I'll be with you on the 5th of October. And I'll be with you on the 19th of October. 5th of October, 1 PM Eastern. 19th of October, 1 PM Eastern. Plus, there'll be some more YouTube videos for you. Love you long time, darlings. Mwah! And I will see you very, very soon. Bye for now.